Hello everyone, my name is Mo, I'm from Dice Goblin. So today I'm going to be talking about Daggerheart. Basically, I've had the luxury and pleasure to play the game for about 24 sessions since its beta release, which was about 2 to 3 weeks ago. And I'm going to give my opinion on how everything went from running about 23 games and playing in one of them, and just to see how everything comes together in this wonderful system that they've created from Darrington Press. So to start it off, love the system. Starts off with the duality dice. I love Powered by the Apocalypse. I actually grew up on D&D. I played D&D for about 12 years now. Have a more than 6 hour. I've always enjoyed other systems like Powered by the Apocalypse and other smaller types of games. But the way Daggerheart did it was it took the elegance and the simplicity of Powered by the Apocalypse, and it took the complexity of D&D and mushed it together to create something that is just complicated enough for it to give that crunch, which I love, and simple enough for it to give that narrative feel, which I love a lot. And I feel like the system was literally designed for me, which I know that sounds a bit egotistical, but it's such an amazing system. Let's start off with how the system complements each other. For the GM, as well as for the players, it does such a wonderful job of creating the story, giving tools to mechanically collaborate on the story instead of focusing, the GM saying stuff for the sake of doing it. Like, for example, in a D&D game, it's a very reactive system. It's the GM creates everything, then the players react to the events that the GM has created, and through the die rolls, their actions will sway the story one way or another. But ultimately, it's, lack of a better description, is BS thrown at the players, and the players will then deal with that by reacting accordingly. Daggerheart kind of takes this and changes it a bit in a way where through the mechanical results that you have achieved on your die rolls, it kind of throws the story in a completely different field. So first of all, let's talk about the hope mechanic. I'll go in more details on all the different mechanics of the system and stuff later in other videos, but just to kind of glaze over everything, the hope mechanic that you get in the system is such a cool concept because not only is it dynamic and it flows so smoothly, it does give the opportunity for players to help each other out without having to spend an action. The system doesn't have an initiative, which, by the way, such a smart move. It doesn't have an initiative, and it requires players to function in any way they want. And so it'll be like the player's turn, and then the GM goes after they failed or they rolled with fear. And so when this happens, the hope mechanic that they have is they can spend a hope to help another player out by rolling a d6. And so their advantage in that system is a d6 on top of the two d12s that you're rolling. And so you're spending that resource to help another player out, which is such a cool concept because you're rolling that for free. You're not spending an action to do it because the only time that an action is declared is when you perform an action roll. When you're helping somebody perform an action roll or whatever, it does not clog up your action economy. While other systems like D&D or even Powered by the Apocalypse, where if I want to help another player out, I'm literally having to roll the dice for Powered by the Apocalypse, whether I would give them a +1 or a +2 in that scenario. Or D&D, I'm wasting an entire action, which I could be using to do a slew of other things. The number of times players used an action to help another player, I could probably count it on my hand in the 6,000 hours of gameplay that I played in that system, 6,000 plus. It's wonderful to see that the help action being used, it's still costing something, it's not free, but it does not cost an arm and a leg of choice. It is such a simple resource because you're constantly flowing with that hope point, going back and forth. And then we're going to talk about the fear. Every time they roll with fear, I get a fear token. Fear tokens are a godsend. They are such a cool mechanic that, see, the thing that I love about it is the storytelling that we can get from it. We can always make up that stuff. That's not the craziest part of the system because everybody can create stories. And I could literally, I played games where I've only rolled a d20, I've rolled just a d6 or whatever, and ran games based on that. But telling stories is not the issue. The thing is, having mechanics to support storytelling is just mwah, chef's kiss. So good. One of the beautiful things is I would have a bunch of fear tokens and I would throw stuff at the players. I've done this thing where it was like, I think it was my first session actually, where they were fighting a were-rat. And the were-rat, and I wasn't using the stat blocks of anything. I was just kind of homebrewing my own stuff just because I wanted to get into it and just get the nitty-gritty of how the system works. I like to learn through play, not through reading a whole bunch of text. So I've read the core mechanics and how everything works and then kind of ignored a good, 300 pages of the book. But, it's a 377-page book anyway. So I did that, and they were fighting a were-rat, and I decided to spend 3 fear tokens to smash the floor that they were part of and collapse the floor that they were in into the floor below. And everybody had to do a agility saving throw kind of deal. And so when they did that, the people that succeeded, and the people that failed. But the beautiful thing is I would have never been able to think of that unless I was still homebrewing my own stuff if I didn't have those fear tokens. The fear tokens gave me a resource of oh yeah, you could do extra cool stuff with this now. It's not just, you have it there and therefore it's a resource that you can or can't use depending on whatever stat block it is. It's you can do stuff and it's okay. You can actually change the entire battlefield or whatever and do what you want, which is a wonderful, wonderful mechanic. Also, you can use it in the middle of the sessions to do other fun stuff. Long story short, it is a wonderful system. They also incorporated clocks from Blades in the Dark, which I love. I tried to do it for D&D, but it requires a lot of homebrewing for it to really come together nicely. But this one, with the fear mechanic and the hope mechanic, it's so good. I've literally had sessions where I would have a clock faced up for the people, and I would tell one of the players to keep track of it. Every time somebody rolled with fear, the clock ticks down. And as soon as it hits 0, something bad happens. And sometimes I've had clocks where I'm like, okay, this is with hope. And as soon as it clicks up all the way from 1 to D8 or whatever, so as soon as it clicks to 8, something good happens, and therefore it's like this, the magical effect of the lake goes into effect, or something like that. And yesterday, well, not 2 days, it was yesterday. Yesterday I had this thing where they were fighting this creature that had strings that attached to different people and the like, and I would touch a player and remove their memory of my existence. And by doing so, they ended up completely becoming invisible to the player. And so the player does not know the monster was there, but the rest of the players who succeeded do know. And they're like, there's a person there, blah, blah, blah. But then they saw a little tiny string that attached to their forehead, and they were trying to cut it. And then I gave the string a little bit of an HP bar. Arguably, I gave it too big of an HP bar. I think in hindsight, I should have brought it down. But long story short, it was a wonderful clock that I put in front of them so they know exactly what it is that they needed to hit. And so when they've done severe damage to it, it would be 3 points, and then if it did a minor damage, 1 point, so on and so forth. So it's such a cool mechanical thing that they've added to support the roleplay instead of the roleplay just kind of coming in and the mechanics only support combat or support only specific questions and stuff like Powered by the Apocalypse. Ultimately, it is obviously, as you probably have known already, it's a system that I truly do love. I've managed to play it for 24 sessions, and I've played in one. And the one realization that I played in is I played a level 10 character. And because I've seen a lot of players play level 1 and 2s and stuff, I've noticed that the lateral growth of the character happens between the players. So, for example, a level 1 character compared to a level 10 character in Daggerheart is actually, yes, mechanically you'll do more damage. Yes, mechanically you can tank more damage. And mechanically you have way more options. You just have an array of options compared to your level 1 counterpart. But a single level 10 character going against a group of 4 level 1 characters, the 4 level 1 characters, I would argue, would have a really close chance of killing that level 10 character, sorry. But do that with D&D. With D&D, you'll have a level 1 character, 4 level 1 characters with a level 20 character. They will not survive an action. that level 20 character will just obliterate them in seconds. That level 1 character could probably take on 100 level 20 character could take on 100 level 1 characters and still survive. And so it is a wonderful way of making players feel really strong from the get-go. So my players are not fighting goblins and rats at level 1. They're fighting like weird eldritch beings and assassins and weird constructs and the like, because they're at a capacity where they don't need to feel weak. They can feel really awesome and badass. And by the way, tag team mechanics, one of my favorite things of all time. I've always wanted to do something with like teamwork. Teamwork has always been a problem where to kind of get it right. Even in Powered by the Apocalypse, where you can't really work together. You can narratively describe things to make it work, which you do with the system as well. But there is nothing like mechanically ties it together. In this system, there's a tag team mechanic where you both roll at the same time and you decide which roll you want to get, which is basically D&D advantage, not their advantage of D6. And then on top of that, you're actually both of you rolling the damage at the same time and dealing damage at the same time. And the way you describe it is so satisfying because both of you are like coming together, doing this massive attack and coming together to do this one beautiful thing is just wonderful. Secondly, the tag team is a great thing, but I lost my train of thought. Let's see. I was talking about how the system supports the story. And by supporting the story, okay, we'll start from here, okay? Now, on to the next part. The next part of this system is we have a wonderful use of thing. Wow, actually, I lost my complete train of thought. So, the next thing that we're going to talk about is how the system in and of itself helps support dynamic storytelling. The narrative flow between story and combat, honestly, it doesn't feel like there is, like you can, in the middle of combat, you can sit down and talk to somebody. I have had like a 4-5 turn combat, then suddenly one of the players start asking a question to the enemy responds, and then all of a sudden the player is doing a persuasion check, convincing the enemy to stop fighting. And that just felt natural. It did not feel like, all right, it's your turn, you get to do the role and you get to act, and therefore somebody else's turn gets to go, and then they're like, well, I guess I'm just going to attack. It just happened, and then it narratively was so satisfactory. It's such an elegant system that it brings the mechanic to roleplay, and it provides such a wonderful collaborative storytelling that it just does so many good things. I love it. I love the system. Personally, I feel like it's the perfect system for myself. I highly recommend it for anybody to try it. Here at Dice Goblin, I'm running 10 different sessions a week. Technically 11, counting my wife's session at the same time. But 10 different sessions a week. And it is, I have the great pleasure to do so. And all my players are wonderful for deciding to change. All of them love it, by the way. Yeah, from a simplicity point of view to more complex stuff, it actually does everything so good that it gives a lot of freedom for the players to do their own thing. I love how armor is not like tied to a certain stat and it just blocks damage, and then you can narratively describe how your armor is. There's a lot of cool little flavor things that they have. Like I got one of my players, they ended up taking the like their entire character, their stomach opens up and it's like this very grotesque form of like stomach things coming out, like with intestines and everything coming out as it just blocks an attack, and it just goes back inside the stomach. There's no mechanics in D&D that does that so far that I know. By the way, I'm not bagging on D&D. I love D&D. I've played it for a long enough time for me to love it. But the system is just Darrington Press. You've done a wonderful job. Can't wait for what you guys do in the future. I've been giving my feedback on a weekly basis, and I will continue to do so. It is a wonderful system. Highly recommend it for anybody who wants to try it. You should try it. And yeah, that's my 2 cents on Daggerheart. Hopefully we'll catch you around in the next video. Maybe we'll talk about some mechanics and how to play the system. Cheers.